Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. My name is Amanda Raish. I'm the content editor at the Collaborative Summer Library Program. I'm happy to welcome you to Dinosaurs 101 for Librarians webinar with the American Museum of Natural History today. This is the first of our 3 webinars with the museum, and we are so thrilled to be partnering with them. They bring an expertise that I know we all recognize and appreciate as we prepare for our upcoming theme, Unearth a Story. Through this partnership, the museum is providing some amazing free resources that you can find on the CSLP website. And I'll make sure to add a link to that to the chat at the very end of this webinar, so watch for that. You'll find some wonderful things there, including a librarian guide, a link to the recording of this webinar once it's available, which would probably be midweek next week. And soon there will also be more info on other upcoming webinars. Before I introduce our presenter, I have a few housekeeping items. We do plan to reserve some time at the end of this webinar session for questions. Please, as you think of the questions, use that Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen to submit them to us. If you put them in the chat, they're likely going to get buried very quickly, and we might not see them. So please use that Q&A feature. We'll keep an eye on the questions, and we'll get to as many as we can at the very end. Also, CSLP is providing a certificate for CE credits. If you wish to use that, you can add your name and print it out. And I'll also share a link to that at the very end of this webinar. So let's get started. We are excited to have Raoul Seroy, Children and Family Learning Educator at the American Museum of Natural History, join us today to guide us through the foundational concepts to connect with young learners and get them excited about paleontology. This session, specifically for librarians, will help prepare you for a summer full of dino excitement. So I will now hand it off to Raoul.
Hi, everyone. Give me one moment to share my screen. All right. So thank you, Amanda, for the introduction, and thank you, CSLP, for having me today. And thank you all for joining us. Welcome to Digging Up Dinos, a webinar on paleontology and how to teach it to students and program visitors. Today, we will cover some foundational concepts in teaching paleontology, some techniques we use at the museum to teach them, and some common misconceptions that come up when teaching. So as Amanda said, my name is Raoul Seroy, and I am an early childhood educator at the American Museum of Natural History in New York. My background is in ecology and evolution, and I have been teaching students and engaging with visitors at AMNH, as well as taught general science for grades K through 4 for about 8 years now. At AMNH, I teach students aged 4 through 10, and currently lead our 2nd grade paleontology curriculum as part of the Science and Nature program. So the Science and Nature program has weekly classes during the academic year for students accompanied by a parent to engage the whole family at a given time. And teaching with this model has given me the opportunity to teach both children and adults about paleontology. So if you have multi-generational groups coming to the programming, the techniques presented today can be applied to all audiences. When I teach about paleontology, and more specifically dinosaurs, there are 3 foundational concepts to scaffold any lesson: the concept of deep time, the process of fossilization, and the sheer diversity of dinosaurs on planet Earth. We use a myriad of activities, movement games, arts and crafts to establish understanding and show paleontology to be a fun and immersive and creative field of study that everyone at any age can enjoy. So concept number 1, deep time. Earth has been around for about 4.5 billion years. And there's fossil evidence that complex life has existed on Earth for about 541 million years. So students and grown-ups alike have a difficult time truly grasping the vastness of that amount of time and interacting with the concepts. So this is a slide that I use in one of our first classes to scaffold the rest of the classes to navigate deep time throughout the year. The fossil evidence to support complex life being on Earth for 541 million years is found in different rock layers from Earth's history called strata. So different fossils are found in different strata layers. So using the fossils in these layers is a way for us to differentiate periods of geologic time and establish our geologic time scale. That being the record of Earth's history told through fossils and rocks. So I like to use the geologic timescale as more of a roadmap for students so we can figure out when we are in Earth's history for each lesson. Deep time is arguably the largest and most abstract concept when teaching paleontology. So how do you go about teaching it? I like to teach deep time and strata by comparing Earth to a cake or a sandwich. I ask students, when you're assembling a cake, do you place your top or bottom layer first? Your bottom layer, right? And after placing all of your cake layers, which one is the oldest? The oldest cake layer being on the bottom and the newest one being on the top. So I like this metaphor because it mimics the concept of deep time and strata in a relatable way to make it digestible, pun intended, to a wider and younger audience. And to expand upon it, I've also assigned different flavors to layers to get across the concept of different things being in different layers. So I'd say the bottom layer is chocolate, the next is vanilla, the one on top of that strawberry, and that kind of idea. I also like to use a child-friendly image of the geologic timescale like this one as an anchor chart for classes so students can reference what period of time we're learning about and if we move forward or backward in time from week to week. So if you move towards that top cake layer, you're moving closer to present day and forward in time. And if you move down in layers, you're going closer to that first cake layer and thus backwards in time. If you have students returning multiple times, it's a good visual to use so students don't get lost in the millions and millions of years. Concept number 2, the process of fossilization. The major source of evidence that we use to establish our geologic timescale are fossils. This is usually one of the biggest draws for students in learning paleontology. It's the physical remains of prehistoric life. So fossils can form through various means and show many different kinds of evidence. So it's very exciting to teach and learn about how they form and what they can tell us about prehistoric life. This is another slide that I use for one of our introductory classes. The idea is to show the many different kinds of fossils paleontologists find and use to establish the geologic timescale. So many fossils are formed when remains are protected from being eaten or broken down by other organisms by quickly getting covered by sediment and preserved over millions of years. Over time, the soft parts like muscle and organs decay, and the harder parts like bones or shells get replaced by minerals seeping into them through water in the ground, and thus becoming fossil rocks. This concept extends to trace remains such as footprints, burrows, even evidence trapped in tree sap, which eventually hardens into amber, and my personal favorite, poop. We have an entire class based around what you can learn from poop fossils, which is a lot actually, and it's quite a fun class to teach. And with that being said, fossils as a whole are incredibly rare. It is not often that these conditions are met and fossils make it to present day for people to find and learn from. So the process of fossilization itself is, again, a very large concept. So I like to teach it by having students bring back that cake metaphor and those strata layers. So I'll ask, what happens if an animal dies out in the open? It often gets scavenged and eaten versus what happens if an animal gets buried quickly before anything eats it and it gets buried by layers and layers of dirt, ash, sediment. It may become a fossil. When I've taught this class in person, I've used a few blankets and covered students in layers and layers of blankets to reinforce the concept of needing to be covered by many years of strata to maybe potentially becoming a fossil. If you don't have blankets, another great classic activity is to have small clear bottles and different colored sands to fill the bottles in different colored layers. And I like to expand upon this by placing small objects like a shark tooth or any other small item in between a few layers at a time to show that fossils need to be buried over time and different fossils are found in different layers. Students are often amazed at the many kinds of fossils that exist and think the process is very interesting and that they are so rare in general. So concept number 3, dinosaur diversity. One of the most captivating things about dinosaurs is that there are so many of them. You can ask anyone, what's your favorite dinosaur? You'll get a million different answers. And dinosaurs are very often people's first introduction to paleontology as a whole. So when people think of paleontology, a dinosaur often comes to mind. Dinosaurs existed and continue to exist in countless shapes, sizes, and colors. About 1,300 species of dinosaurs have been discovered to date and continue to be discovered every day, which may seem like a lot already, because it is. But to put that number into perspective, there are over 10,000 bird species alive today. They comprise the current number of living dinosaurs species, since birds are, in fact, modern day dinosaurs. And the traditional non-avian dinosaurs were around for roughly 186 million years. And since only a small fraction of organisms are actually able to fossilize, as we just learned in our last foundational concept, the true breadth of dinosaur species is likely to be significantly greater than just the ones we know of so far. So to teach this concept, I really like open-ended creative crafts. I've often used art crafts where students create dioramas to display a dinosaur of their choosing or have them create a dinosaur out of recycled materials. And for these creative activities, I like to put reference pictures of several vastly different groups of dinosaurs, like up on the board or out on tables. So students have a lot of options to get creative and find a dinosaur that resonates with them. I often have a whole menagerie of different dinosaurs by the end of class. Usually there's at least one T-Rex, usually always, actually every time there's a T-Rex. And those are the kind of the foundational concepts and techniques that we use at the museum to teach about paleontology as a whole. Over the years, I've compiled some common misconceptions that I've come across when teaching paleontology that would be helpful to be aware of. So number 1, every fossil is a dinosaur. The amount of time that dinosaurs were the dominant group on the planet only comprises about 33% of Earth's history of complex life. So there is significantly more time that there were no dinosaurs on the planet versus dinosaurs on the planet. So students often think dinosaurs are the only prehistoric life on Earth. So it's always a really cool aha moment when they find out that Earth's history is so much bigger than just dinosaurs. Numbers 2 and 3 are pretty closely connected, being that dinosaurs are not around anymore and what some many iconic dinosaurs may have looked like. So more recent media surrounding dinosaurs has shown many dinosaurs to be feathered and have a very close relationship to modern day birds. Older students and adults may still have the misconception that an animal like T-Rex looked more like a lizard with large scales or Godzilla than like a big chicken with teeth the size of bananas. Number four, when when certain iconic dinosaurs lived in relation to one another. So again, the sheer amount of deep time that dinosaurs have existed can just be mind-boggling to learners. And a fun fact that I like to use to illustrate that deep time is that human beings like us live closer in time to T-Rex than T-Rex did to any dinosaurs that lived during the Jurassic period. That's the time period immediately before the Cretaceous period when T-Rex lived. And our final misconception, number five, that flying and marine reptiles are dinosaurs. There are a couple major groups of animals that often get grouped with dinosaurs because they're around at the same time and were also reptiles. So these groups are the flying reptiles, such as your pteranodon or Quetzalcoatlus, and the marine reptiles, such as plesiosaurs and mosasaurs. Media often depicts these animals together, rightfully so, since they lived in the same ecosystems. But students often conflate the groups as all dinosaurs, which is inaccurate and can be a bit confusing. So thank you so much for taking this journey through teaching paleontology and dinosaurs with me. I'm happy to take any questions you may have in our Q&A session now.
Thank you so much, Raoul. That's a lot of great information, and I think it'll become very helpful as we plan for summer and start diving into all things dinosaurs. We've been keeping an eye on the questions, and we have a couple for you. Let's see here. What most excites you about what isn't currently known about dinosaurs?
Oh my goodness, that is a wonderful question. I think the most interesting thing about dinosaurs and teaching it for me is that there's a lot of scientists who are actively doing research on dinosaurs. So you find out new things every year. I think very recently there was some type of ice age cat that was found in some permafrost. That was a really cool addition to our ice age class, which isn't dinosaurs but paleontology. Um, so I would definitely say all the new stuff that comes out year to year because it's such a major focus of study in paleontology. Amanda, you're muted. I'm sorry.
It looks like we have a lot of people interested in the graphics that you've been using, specifically the time scale. So I think you picked some good ones. I think they're interested if they can get their hands on it. So maybe we'll update them with that later. Um, let's see. Do you get pushback from adults when you correct the common misconceptions? How do you handle that?
I think I would say not often do I get pushback from grown-ups on anything too much dinosaur. A, because dinosaurs is such like a widely loved concept when it comes to kids, that when grown-ups are in the room, they're often like, well, my kid really likes dinosaurs. I'm going to reinforce that. But a lot of it can be quite surprising to them, especially in like how certain animals are related in terms of groups of animals. So like the flying reptiles and the marine reptiles, where these are not in the same group at all, and the how much time certain animals were around is also something that really surprises them. But I wouldn't say I get too much pushback in terms of like content.
Right. Do you have any favorite books that you like to use in your programs, Raul?
Oh my goodness, there are so many really, really great books. Oh my goodness, I'm forgetting authors right now. But we have a wonderful paleontologist book called Daring to Dig, which I'm forgetting the author, I'm so sorry. Um, which all about how people get into paleontology. I believe it focuses on women paleontologists in particular, which is super, super wonderful. I love that. And our kids really like that and see themselves represented. Um, there's another book called The Street Beneath Our Feet, and it's a really big pull-out book, which I love that one. It's really, really great for an introductory class. And the little kids love it because it's like a book, but it's an accordion at the same time. It's a great time.
Yes, that is a good book. I've seen that. It's a lot of fun. Do you have a favorite dinosaur? You said that's a popular question. So what is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh my goodness, my favorite question. It changes year to year, again, as you learn more, but there's a dinosaur called Microraptor, which is close to my heart. It's another one of these feathered dinosaurs, but it had claws like your kind of velociraptor, had wings on its forearms and wings on its hind legs. So it's the only animal that we know of that has feathers and four like flying appendages. So cool.
Nice. And as I'm looking at the chat, there's a lot of people adding their book choices in there. So if people are on here looking for book ideas, look in the chat. There's a lot of librarians on here sharing their favorites. So that's great. Do you use any simplified vocabulary when you're working with very young children?
I would say yes, not only for like certain groups of animals. Like for instance, if I'm teaching a 4-year-old, I may not use the word theropod to describe the group of feathered dinosaurs. I may just say an example like T-Rex or Velociraptor. Typically T-Rex, it's the one they're most familiar with. But we try and make it a point to use the terminology and the actual scientific words for young learners, so it's not daunting when they're older and exposed to a lot of these words that are Latin and maybe not words that they recognize on the daily.
No. Um, do you have any resources that you would specifically recommend? Any web resources would be helpful. I know the American Museum of Natural History has that ology portion of their website. That might be a fun one. Can you tell us about that or any other ones that you would recommend people checking out, or whether it's in the library or, telling families about it to explore on their own?
I typically advertise the Ologies website, so that's fun you brought it up. Because most of my students are younger, it's very digestible to them, and there's a lot of games for them to be able to engage with content on. So I always recommend Ologies to them as kind of a start. Um, and dinosaurs is one of those things that there's a lot of media to consume about it, especially for older kids and even grown-ups. Like I think Netflix just released a Dinosaurs documentary. It's wonderful. There's several kind of all over Netflix, Hulu, and all of them. I would definitely recommend those types of that type of media if you're going for maybe a bit of an older audience, and ologies for a younger audience.
Okay, do you take the time to distinguish the difference between archaeology and paleontology? Have you ever done a class where these two sciences could blend together?
We absolutely make a distinction. Um, I You could do a class blending the two of them. I have not personally done that, because archaeology is all about like human remains, studying human stuff, and humans and dinosaurs did not coexist at the same time, so that may be a difficult thing to blend together. We typically do like an archaeology class during our cultural anthropology units, and then a our dinosaur stuff during our paleontology units. Because like sure, your techniques are maybe the same when you're doing those fields of science, you're digging stuff up. That's kind of where people run into the same thing. But the fields of studies themselves are quite different.
Right? And maybe even just adding a definition at the beginning of your program could help if kids are confused between the difference or don't understand the differences. Um, but yeah, there's so much to explore. I wanted to remind everyone too that the librarian guide that the museum has provided on our website has a lot of great video clips too, with conversation starters, how to use those. make sure you explore that. This is a lot of great discussion, and that's a great tool to keep that discussion going with your patrons. Um, what is your favorite craft to do with children, Raul?
Oh my goodness. I mean, as an early childhood educator, we do a lot of just crafts in general because adding an art element as part of like STEAM and the learning process there is crucial for them to have a mastery of the subject and kind of figure out again like with what dinosaurs that they really like. Like I like Microraptor, but I've had students love like the headbutt ones, the Pachycephalosaurs or Triceratops and things like that. So I particularly like the build a dinosaur out of recycled materials. You're recycling. That's really great. You can get the community involved and ask for 2 liter bottles, water bottles, any a bubble wrap, love bubble wrap, egg cartons. Like I think including the recycled materials dinosaur is a really, really great way to reuse stuff that you're not using anymore and to be creative with what you could create. Because also like paleontologists and artists will work together to show what these dinosaurs may have looked like, right? Like you don't often get things like colors or, well, sometimes you can figure out colors through fossils, but not always. So it's interesting to see how kids are creative with showing dinosaurs because that's a very real profession. So I quite like that one a lot.
Well, and it's perfect that you bring that up because that's actually one of our programs in our manual this year. It's on chapter 1, page 19, all about using recycled materials to create your dinosaur, whether it's one that you kind of come up with of their imagination, or you add books from your collection to the program so they can look up, some dinosaurs and try to make a specific one. So yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, we have another question here. Do you have a quick explanation to say why pterosaurs are not dinosaurs?
We're talking about the flying ones, the
The
pterosaurs.
yeah, pterosaurs, yeah.
The short answer is pterosaurs and marine reptiles like your plesiosaurs are lacking a hip socket, a hole in their hip, in the same way that the group dinosaurs does. Um, so if you see the fossils of these pterosaurs or the marine reptiles and you look at their hips in particular, you don't see that hole in the hip. But with all dinosaurs, you do. So that's kind of the major connecting feature, or at least one of them, for the group dinosaurs versus pterosaurs and marine reptiles.
Thank you. So here is another one. What is the best way to explain why dinosaurs are extinct?
That's a wonderful question. The museum actually has a great exhibition right now called Impact, the End of the Age of Dinosaurs, which is super, super great. I think you can talk about why certain groups of animals are not around anymore to talk about things like climate change and ecosystems changing, right? Like animals are adapted to live in a certain environment and to fill certain niches, eat certain foods, live life a certain way. And when change happens, often very quickly, many animals don't have the ability to adapt as a population and survive through that extinction event. So with dinosaurs, it's really interesting because the asteroid impact that drastically changed the environment very, very quickly, like in hours and days, months, which is significantly quicker than any other mass extinction event in Earth's history. I wouldn't shy away with like how quickly that happened. Um, and for young kids, it can definitely be like, there's going to be an asteroid. Um, I feel that's like, I would say top 10 kids' fears is there's an asteroid coming when they learn about dinosaurs. Um, but you can always remind them like, this has happened a single time in Earth's 541 million year history of complex life. It is highly, highly, highly unlikely to happen. And we have technology now to know way ahead of time if something like that were to happen and how we could make adjustments to make sure it does not happen. Yeah, excellent
So
question
that's
though.
a yeah, that's a great way of explaining it, and also then, helping with some fears that might come from that. So great, thank you. Okay, let's see. Do you have any suggestions, Raoul, on how to introduce and teach paleo art, specifically how it evolves and changes as new information is unearthed?
Phenomenal question. This all the time. We do this all the time. Um, we have a whole class about the group theropods, like what T-Rex and Velociraptor and Microraptor are all part of. That the first iterations of media regarding this group, so like T-Rex, you can think of like this imagery from like the 60s, this like kind of animation where it looks like Godzilla, like the tail's dragging on the ground. It's very upright stance and it's like rah, like yelling. How that image has changed to today's image, or it's gone through many iterations. So like in the 60s looks like Godzilla. In the 80s, it looks a little bit more like the skin is taut against the muscles, and it looks quite outrageous when you would think about how an animal like a swan or something looks today. Maybe something that has like more muscle going on. It doesn't just look skin taut. Um, versus like today's iterations where the group of theropods, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that many individuals and many species had feathers based on skin imprints, sometimes the actual feathers you can find, the fossils. So I think the group theropods is a really, really great example of how paleo art changes over time based on how much you find. So like in the 80s is really when this feathered idea kind of came at the very beginning. And then by like the late 90s, 2000s, you were starting to see significantly more paleo art, including feathers that did not exist prior to that information, prior to that like discovery. There were a few key discoveries in China, and I believe Germany of having like Archaeopteryx, very feathered dinosaurs. So I would definitely use that as an example for sure.
Thank you. Do you have or have you had issues with people who object to evolution or deep time on religious grounds? And do you have any helpful hints on how to handle that?
Absolutely. So when I am presented with a situation where someone has a religious belief that is different from the fossil evidence that we're using to show about paleontology, it's always important to say that paleontology is evidence-based. It's a field of study. So you can choose to believe one versus the other. The evidence found on planet Earth suggests that this is the story of Earth's history. But I never want to put someone in a position of feeling like they're being attacked for their religion or doing anything like that. So presenting it as the evidence to support the theory of Earth's history, I always find the more appropriate way to approach that usually delicate situation.
It is. Thank you for that. Somebody submitted an interesting question. They're planning on planting a dinosaur food plot in their community garden, and they're wondering if you have any suggestions on seeds to use.
Oh my goodness, I love that. That's wonderful. That's a great way to engage with modern day dinosaurs. Um, well, it depends a lot on where you are. You can look up the type of birds you may find in your community, in your general neighborhoods, and what seeds or food that they might eat. I live in the Northeast, a lot of people do sunflower seeds for their jays or like little pieces of millet for their like chickadees and things like that. But if you're doing kind of a bird box, I would definitely put a variety of seed types if you're going for seed eating birds, and set up a camera. It's always fun to see what shows up.
Yes, those cameras are a lot of fun. Okay, here's an interesting one. Do you know what dinosaurs sounded like? Is there maybe a website that showcases some ideas or sound bites to be shared with patrons or kids any age to up engagement?
Yes, we do have some more recent studies of what dinosaurs may have sound like. Specifically, T-Rex is one of those. Oh my goodness, I'm forgetting on websites in this moment, but there's a couple great YouTube channels that I will tell my kids about. Deep Look is one of them. PBS Eons is another. I really like those two for YouTube channels, very accessible. The content can be a little high level, so aim for maybe like a second grader and higher. It may be a little tough for a kindergartner to really get it, but they have great visuals. It's all very evidence-based and backed. I really, really like it. I'm not going to do a T-Rex impression because it's going to sound horrible. But it's like we do know what some dinosaurs most likely sounded like.
Okay. Well, saying that it would be horrible makes everyone want to hear it all the more, but we won't make you. This question kind of goes along with the vocabulary for younger kids, but do you have any ideas for starting to teach helpful dinosaur concepts to 0 to 5 kids? Anything additional to what you said earlier?
Well, the youngest I've taught dinosaurs to is 3-year-olds. I have not taught them 0 to 2, and 3-year-olds can be a lot of like interpretive play and imagery as opposed to vocabulary words. I really like when they hit 5 is kind of when I have done more of the terminology. Because 3, it's just a different age group. So I would do more like kinesthetic learning and more active play for them to kind of understand different dinosaurs. So act like a T-Rex. Put your two fingers on your short little stubby arms. Act like a sauropod. Give me a really long head and neck, long neck, excuse me. Yeah, that's what I would recommend for a very, very young audience.
And it just introduce the concept of it and the awareness there. Yeah. Okay. Are there other fun or unusual prehistoric creatures that you think children would find interesting, like the Tully monster?
Tully Monster is great. Love Tully Monster. Um, I think so. In the same vein of there's so many dinosaurs, the evidence for life on Earth is huge, and there's so many different organisms uh, that anybody could choose anything from. My particular favorites are Anomalocaris. I love Anomalocaris. It's like a big shrimp from the Cambrian. Some say it's the world's first apex predator. That's a great title for it. Love that. Anything Ice Age is always fun. I always loved my saber-toothed cats. I still do. Um, Things that live during the Permian that are kind of like stem mammals that are like not really full reptiles, not really full mammals. That kind of have these weird mix of traits for both. So things like Dimetrodon is always a cool one. People see that one a lot. People also think that one's a dinosaur. It's not a dinosaur. But the possibilities are truly endless, and it's really, really cool to see what kids come up with and think of because they will always surprise you on what they know, especially a kid who's like kind of already into paleontology. They'll hit you with something you never even saw coming, which is always so fun.
That is true. We have a question on if you could list and pronounce some of the more trickier dinosaur names, and I think you could probably spend a lot of time doing that, and we won't make you do that. But are there any specific that you hear people pronounce wrong a lot, or are there resources that you would say this is a great site that kind of walks you through pronouncing some of the names?
I don't know about a website, but I've just typed into Google and made it speak to me. I used to have kind of a spelling contest with my old third graders of who can spell Parasaurolophus and Pachycephalosaurus. And those are not the longest names of dinosaurs. Dinosaurs can have really, really long names. So if you look up longest dinosaur names and make it into like a spelling contest, it is quite fun. But my personal favorites were Parasaurolophus and Pachycephalosaurus.
Raoul, it's like you read our manual because we also have a spelling bee in there for an activity for a dinosaur themed spelling bee. Because yeah, they can be very tricky, right? So it's perfect. Um, Someone is asking, you mentioned using recycled materials and dioramas in your art programs. Do you have any other projects that you found specifically successful?
For like creating dinosaurs or just in general?
For linking any of the education to like a hands-on art.
Sure. I think it's not dinosaurs, but we do a placoderms class, which are the extinct armored fish. And they have a very, especially the most popular one is named Dunkleosteus. And it has this very distinct like jaw shape to it. So I like to do Dunkleosteus masks, where they cut out the shape and they kind of hook it on, and they yang, yang, yang. It's really fun and really cute. We'll like glue some like aluminum foil onto it. We kind of call them like the knights of the sea. And that's a really good way to kind of like connect it to more of like a fantasy thing. And they'll bring them home and they'll wear them all day. I get a lot of emails about them. They're quite fun. So dress up games are really fun, and definitely like the creating and the crafting I find gives them an opportunity to really like have mastery over the content and figure out what they really like, and then they run with it. I've had kids talk about Dunkleosteus 3 years down the line, and they don't still have the mask. Kids, it doesn't last so long.
Creates that connection and it sticks in their brain. That's super fun. Somebody's asking how accurate the dinosaurs from animated movies, things like maybe The Land Before Time, are, since it seems like some of those are still a foundational example for kids. Um, what do you think about that?
Well, I love Land Before Time. I grew up on that. I love Land Before Time. Is it inaccurate? Absolutely. So a lot of older students will have that misconception of what they think dinosaurs may have looked like or interacted with each other, specifically with like an animated movie like that. And I think those are fine for just media. And it's like these are fun stories and they're singing songs and they're having a good time. But then there's also media that exists that is intended to show these animals in a natural setting, in an ecosystem of them interacting with each other in a more evidence-based way. And I think it's fine to have them have a great time with the animated stuff, and it'll be close to their hearts when they're older. And then at the same time, like if you did really want to have like this naturalistic situation, and there's media for that as well.
Um, so this has been discussed a little bit in passing, but the question is, so are birds really dinosaurs then?
Yes, they are. They are quintessentially, absolutely dinosaurs, and they are related to the theropod group, which T-Rex is also part of. That does not make birds a direct descendant of T-Rex itself, but they're from that same group. So I had a slide that had a cladogram, which was like the tree that showed all the different groups of dinosaurs, and birds is way up at the top because it's the only group of dinosaurs that survived the mass extinction 66 million years ago. Um, and there's many reasons for that, and some of it's lucky. Some of it, like feathers, could have been really good for thermoregulation. It got really dark and really cold very quickly right after this mass extinction, so feathers may have been really good for that. Um, there's a lot we don't know about why certain groups survived that extinction, but what we do know is that birds are the only ones from the dinosaur group that did.
There's still so much to learn that these young paleontologists that can grow up and figure these things out, right? Let's see, what other creatures were living alongside dinosaurs?
Oh my goodness, many, 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 many. So again, with that idea of like dinosaurs are the only fossils, they're the only group around. Anything that is alive today has an ancestor that was alive then. So mammals were around at the same time, other reptiles like turtles, crocodiles, birds themselves as a group was around. They evolved in the Jurassic, so they were birds like you think how we think of birds in the Cretaceous period with T-Rex as well. Um, there were many, many like extinct groups today, like your traditional ammonites. So I have one on my shirt. Got ammonites all over here. That's a pretty classic one that people know. But there's a lot of things that lived at the same time as them that are no longer around today. which is super, super interesting when you think about that.
Thank you. Well, I think that might be a wrap on questions. There were a lot of great questions from everybody. Um, but yeah, thank you for answering all those and sharing so much great information in your presentation and then questions. I'm going to quick pop in the chat the link to the museum's resources that they shared on that we have on our website with the librarian guide that also includes some really basic knowledge about paleontology that you might find helpful. There's also a link to the certificate for this webinar if you choose to use that. Um, yeah, well, so I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. The links are in the chat there, and I can share them out in another way too, if people can always reach out to me if you have questions. But we want to thank you so much, Raoul, and the rest of the American Museum of Natural History team for joining us today, for their partnership, for their time and their expertise. We certainly look forward to the next webinar. I know it'll be a lot of fun. So thank you so much. Bye,
Thank you all
everyone.
so much. Bye.